Welcome to A Life in Film. If you enjoyed this episode, please review and share this podcast. It makes a huge difference. We're also on Patreon, TikTok and Instagram if you'd like to support us or get more content. Thank you. You'll know our guest from Sons of Anarchy, or perhaps Marvel's Luke Cage. He's a self-professed character actor that has an abundance of diverse credits, but did you know he started as an extra? Working his way up with bit parts in Malcom in the Middle, Lost and Grey's Anatomy. More recently, he's been in Zack Snyder's Army of the Dead and Netflix's True Story alongside Kevin Hart and Wesley Snipes. His story from the streets to his critically acclaimed new movie, Emily the Criminal, starring Aubrey Plasa. Our guest today is actor Theo Rossi. Emily the Criminal opens in the UK on the 27th of October.
How are you doing?
Yeah, I'm good, man. Not too bad, not too bad. I have to say, this movie hit me like a sledgehammer. There's moments in there where you're just like, oh my God.
Yeah.
It really puts you in your place.
90 minutes. 90 minutes too. It just kind of like
It's one of those things where as well you put yourself in the situation of the lead and you're just kind of there going, oh my God. And with your character, you just don't really know whether or not to trust you. And I really enjoyed it. But this is like a first-time director and he wrote it as well. Am I right in saying that?
correct. Yeah, John Patton Ford. He had a short film at Sundance 12 years prior and then nothing.
Wow. Crazy. And to do something this tight and this like enjoyable is mad. How did you get involved with this project?
Yeah, it's funny. John and I joke around because everybody keeps saying it's a taut thriller, right? And he's like, we should call it like Emily the Taut. I was doing this film in Atlanta and I had gone 2 films in a row. So I had done this one film and then another film. And I was kind of like in this, I'm a character actor who like literally is like for hire, you know what I mean? So whenever I'm working, I'm fortunate that I'm always working, but I try to make my character so different that like, I don't really like talking about other work when I'm working on something, right? So they had called me up and they're like, there's this film we've been tracking. We really love it for you. And they're going really quick. And I was like, cool, we'll talk about it in 3 weeks when I'm over. They're like, oh, no. Like you gotta talk to them now. They need to know now. And I was like, okay, who is it? And they were like, it's this first time director. And I was like, cool, that I love. Usually writer director. Okay, great. I love writer directors. It's my favorite thing. Because it's all one source. And then they were like Aubrey Plasa, and I was like, okay. I was like, the comedian or something. Like I didn't know her work, but again, I have 2 little kids. I don't really know anything, so I watch movies like from 1990 and under. I was like, oh. And then I had a few friends that had worked with her, and I was just like, cool, let's do it. And we set up this big meeting. We were going to do this big Zoom. I got the script. I read the script I read scripts really fast, but this one I read in probably 35 minutes. And I was like, as someone who had student loans, as someone who's been fighting from the bottom from day one, as someone who sees the hypocrisy in all of it, I was like, okay, I see what's happening here. And then at the time, then John and I got on, we talked for a long time. We set a meeting for that night with John, Aubrey and Aubrey was in Italy filming a movie that's currently out just came out called Spin Me Round. And our schedules were so crazy. He was in LA, I was in Georgia, she was in Italy. So she actually never showed up for the first meeting. She got everything wrong. And of course, I'm like, we're all busy. I was like, I'm not doing this. And then they were like, no. And the reason I could say this now is Aubrey and I are so incredibly tight right now. The second we got on our Zoom, I didn't need to even hear another thing. 4 minutes into it, I said, I will do whatever she needs, whenever she needs it, because she's so incredibly unique. She was producing the film. And it's almost like we're from the same way, the way we approach this madness of this business. We have the same exact like kind of thought process of it, of one, how fortunate we are. 2, let's just go wild. Like, let's just do it. And let's hold nothing back. Let's take chances. Let's not care the way we look. Let's not care the way this happens. Let's not, it's not ego driven by us. And I'm not saying that others are. It's just, it's a rarity in this business to give yourself over. So that was it. And I said, what do we have to do? And then I finished that movie. A day and a half later, I was in Los Angeles, and 5 days later, we were on the set. We had a few days of rehearsal.
Wow.
And we shot the movie in 20 days.
Wow, that's mad. That is very, very
days.
quick. Yeah, crazy.
20 days, every day, all day. Again, life is crazy. It's one of those things where everything has to go right. And on that one, everything went wrong, but everything went right. Everything went right with us. Everything went wrong with the movie, like the way we were like shutting down, and are we going to be able to film here and all that. But that all added to the pressure you felt when you watched it.
Oh, it did. It had a feeling. It kind of had a similar feel to Uncut Gems, where you're kind of watching it going, oh my God, what's going to happen? And her performance, as you say, is just, I'm used to seeing her in comedies. So seeing her in this is like, it's a different entity, really. And yourself as well. All the performances are great. The whole world is very believable. And from the writing, the directing, the performances, it's pretty amazing that this is his first feature. And for it to all, I mean, you say it was, kind of a rushed shoot and all a little bit mad, but it came together, well, I personally think, really, really well. And it took me by surprise. I'm going to be honest. I didn't know what to expect.
It takes everybody by surprise. Yeah. Because again, we're not used to, this is a world that, if this film came out in the 70s and 80s, it would make more sense. But the thing is that as we get towards independent cinema almost being like, what is it now? Okay. Or is it like, is it even good? Or, because it's almost like our brains aren't accustomed, where back, not in the very recent past, that is where we always saw the best films. And now it's kind of like, who is it? What is it? Is it not on Netflix? Is it streaming? Is it on this? Is it on that? Where is it? And then if you're like, no, it's this independent film, but you didn't see like 100 billboards, you didn't see 30 commercials, you kind of just dismiss it. It's not our fault. It's the program, right? We're just dismissive of things that aren't in our face 24/7. And then when we see it and we're like, holy shit, like that was really good. You're almost like blown away by it. And then on the flip side of that, when something is in your face every 14 seconds and you see it and you kind of go, I expected more. And you expected more because you've been bombarded for months about it. So we loved that we were like kind of the underdog. I think we were the highest rated film at a Sundance. I know we just won the audience award at Deauville.
Wow.
Yeah, they'll be at the London Film Festival. Unfortunately, I can't make it because I'm filming. So then it'll go on the European kind of streaming or whatever we're doing there. I'm too dumb to know all that. And then it's just been so incredibly received. And I think it's because you don't see us coming.
There's nothing better than that, though. A movie that totally takes you by surprise. And I obviously read the synopsis, but I didn't want to watch the trailer. So I really went into it kind of not knowing exactly what the vibe was going to be. And I think that made it even better, because you are really being carried along with these characters and you're believing what they're getting up to. But you say you shot it in 20 days. That is insane. I mean, obviously the lead up to it sounds like it was pretty quick as well, but did you have any sort of, you say you had a bit of rehearsal, but what was did you have how did you go into this film like and prepare for this role?
Yeah, there's no such thing as luck. It's just like timing and preparation. My way, I've never been one of those artists that had like 2 years to get ready for a role. Like when I hear that, I'm like, what? 2 years? Like I have to work all the time, so I have because I like playing characters, because I never want to be I don't even know who I am. So I couldn't even say that. That doesn't make sense. So it's like, you know, cause I don't really exist in the whole grand scheme of things. So it's like, I have to consolidate my prep, and I've been doing that forever, for 20 years. So my thing is, like, I have a certain protocol to get ready. And if I do have more time, great. But when I have a short amount of time, I could still do it. Like, I can adjust to it. So it always starts with like, okay, where is he from? How much money does he make? What's his educational background? What kind of music does he listen to? And that all forms into like the way he dressed, his dialect, you know, how he walks, what he eats, forms into how much weight, and you know, it's all like a limited space. So there's so much I can do. So I have family that was, you know, still in Lebanon, and a lot of family in New York who are all, you know, first generation, whatever. So right away it was like, okay, he went to university. Okay, so more French influence on the accent, on the dialect. Okay, cool. Who can I call up who is in that exact position and can read my entire script? And then they read my entire script, and I just play it on my headphones throughout the 20 days. So I'm hearing that. And when I'm not filming, I'm going for walks and I'm running with that. I'm doing 6-mile runs with that in my ear at all times, so I can absorb the cadence, the flow. And then I start to inform his relationship with his mom. Where was his dad? How is he? So I have to do it, because if I don't believe it, the audience won't believe it, because the eyes never lie, right? So like, if you are unsure of what you're doing, it's really hard to fake the funk when you're playing characters. You could be yourself, or whatever that version of yourself is in the movie, and that'll get by for some people. I just can't work like that. So my process was really tailor-made for this film, because I just kind of can get it's almost like the pressure. I like the pressure. And so I had to create Yusuf from what I had at hand. Thank God I had family members. Thank God I had friends. Thank God I had people that could read my script. It's the exact dialogue of, you know, a cousin in Lebanon. So it's like, if I can do that and I can inform the work, then I start creating playlists and doing all, and I do that really quickly in a consolidated amount of time, but then I do it throughout the filming. And thank God for weekends. So it's really pick up.
That's one of those things, isn't it, as well? Having, I mean, that's a real gift, having someone that you know has that accent, and you can just listen to it, and then that's something that you kind of just, it's almost like you sleep to it, and you try and get it into your head.
You do sleep to it. You fall asleep to it. You wake up to it. You have it playing when you're in the shower, when you're in, and again, especially on a quick timeline. So I have a fantastic dialect coach, and he picked that up. You know, he has certain people that want to know, you know, how the structure is broken down, and where is this, and the diphthongs, and all these different things. And then there's people like, you know, and I'm not speaking out of school, like he works with Brendan Gleeson, who's like, just get someone to read it, and I'll just mimic it. And that I found is way better for someone like me, because I study with my eyes. It's very hard. Like, when you teach me something, I'm like, I'm gone already. But like, if I study with my eyes and hear, like if I use those senses as opposed to, you know, notebooks and creating that makes no sense to me. So it's like living in another country and then kind of picking up the language just from emulsification, as opposed to going to multiple classes for it. You know, it's that. So I was really, again, very fortunate. But I think no matter what the role is, you could find someone through your network or outreach that you can find someone in any of it.
It's interesting. Everyone has a different process, and for me personally, you can learn the lines of the script as much as you want, but until you've done that rehearsal and you've walked it through, it feels like it's not cemented. And then once you've done that, I think it's a dyslexic thing for me. Once I've put movement to the words, I don't know if you find that's a similar thing for you.
Yeah, my thing is, I'm an absolute over preparer, because I want to be unprepared when the moment hits.
Yeah.
So what that means is, like, if I know your lines, my lines, if I know everything that's happening, if I know everything that in this specific occasion John wants, we've talked, we've broken it down, I'm free in the moment. I'm free now because all my backups are there. I'm aware of everything that we just discussed. But if I'm not in that, if I haven't done the studying, well, I'm already at a level 9 nervousness because I'm like, I don't really know this. And then I don't really know where I'm coming from, and I don't know where this. And then it's just going to not inform the work the right way. So it's like over prepare to under prepare. Now, I've worked with some, probably the best actor I've ever worked with, Alfre Woodard, who would learn her lines in makeup. And I never got that, right? And her thing was, I don't want to be married to them. I need to just do them. I think that really works when you have more takes. And again, I'm always coming from a position of, I started as an extra. So like, I'm always coming from a position of less than, where I'm not going to be giving more. And I think that as I get on bigger things and work on bigger things, I'm always going to have that kind of blue collar sensibility, because all that other stuff's a luxury. You know what I mean? Like, that's great. It's just not the way it's not my journey in this business for over 20 years.
That's interesting. You mentioned there that you started off as an extra. I mean, how did that come about? How did, like, actually getting that first extra job, what was the kind of the ignition to that?
There is no way in anything, and I sometimes try to wrap my head around it, that I would ever think I would be doing this for a living. It just didn't seem feasible, right? Or even a thought process, because my life was so different. Meaning, like, excuse me, I've spoken about it a few times, just like, it was like going down the wrong path in every way, and I was okay with that. You know what I mean? Like, I was okay with if I had to go to jail. I was okay if, I had been around a criminal mindedness for so long that it became almost my ambition, where it was like, that was the thing I was going to do. When I hit a snag of something and got very lucky that I got out of a situation, I was lost, because I didn't really have any discernible skills. I had worked contracting and construction, and I tried even working on Wall Street for like 3 months at a point, selling fax paper, which shows you how long ago it was. And I didn't know, I was literally cold calling the phone book. Hey, do you use fax machines? And people are like, what? I was like, oh, all right, I'll call you back. And, I was trying anything because I didn't want to go back to kind of the streets, but it was really what I was good at. It's what I knew. And I just so happened there was this beautiful acting class on 15th and 5th in Manhattan called Lee Strasberg. And my buddy was going there, and I went not to go to school there. I went to, like, get him. There was this really great bar next door, and everybody would go there after it. And I just got really intrigued by what was going on. I had zero direction in life. I was 23. Maybe just turned 23. So I didn't know anything. I didn't know what I was going to do. I never thought about, I would assume that I'd be either dead or in jail. I didn't know what I'd do. And I know that's cliche to say, but I couldn't even think about future plans. Like, I was like only in the plan. Once, and to bore you with the details, once I decided that this was what I was going to do, like anything else, I have this dog in me that, like, I had to study every single bit of the business, because the past informs the future. It never really changes. Everything's the same. It's just a kind of different version of it, right? So I started studying the beginnings of Hollywood, why it exists. Why do people like entertainment like this? Why do they even want to watch TV and films and listen to the radio? What is this? What does Mack Sennett and Charlie Chaplin do when Mack Sennett did the first studio and Charlie Chaplin was the first actor to be paid over $1 million? And what was that like? And how were they informing the work? And that led me down all these different directions of, like, Uta Hagen and Stanislavski and Meisner and all these different techniques. And I was like, oh, this is life work. And so I didn't know, okay, so great. I was getting the business, I was getting the informative artistic side. What about the business side? Well, I was living in New York City, where I was born and raised. And in those days, it was either you go do Broadway and stay in New York, maybe do like a couple of guest stars on like Law and Order or something that was around. And if you want to do film and television, you got to go to LA. I had been doing all these like little things to get my SAG card, anything I can do. Industrials, but it's, you know, those were like no vouchers. And then I got anything just to get on a set. So I didn't get any vouchers. As weird as this sounds now I think about it, when I was in New York, and I was like, okay, I got to go to LA. So I told all my closest friends that I'd grown up with my whole life, between 8 and 12 on, I'm going to go to LA. And they were like, okay, we'll go. And I was like, cool. So we had a 74 Cadillac and an 85 Honda Civic, both really beat up, and it took us 11 days. And we went to LA, and only 2 of us had been there out of the 5 of us. I arrived Halloween night, 1999, with no money, like less than $600 and something to my name. Even though I had, you know, I had used, because once I went on this journey, any street money I had was gone. I just didn't know. So I started trying to get a SAG card, and I got 1 voucher from doing Sex and the City's LA episode. I'll never forget that. And then I got 2 vouchers in 1 day or 2 days, or maybe it was multiple episodes they were doing from this Ned something on Nickelodeon. And I felt like I won. I was like, I won. I got my SAG card. Like, I won the game. Like, whatever you say, I accomplished this. And then I realized, oh, you have to actually make more than $100 a day. So it started leading to things. I worked at a restaurant and a bar that a lot of agents and managers came in. I was always very, I wouldn't say personable. I was just very like realistic, meaning like realistic in my behavior to people. Like, if you were an asshole, I had to tell you you're an asshole. And if you were a good person, I would tell you you're a good person. And you knew that whatever it was with me, you were going to get it. And I think that helped me I wasn't desperate. Like a lot of actors have desperation, and a lot of artists do, but they don't even know what they're desperate for. They're desperate for something that doesn't exist. I wanted to be the best. So to be the best, I knew I needed an agent, a manager. I needed to work. I needed to get on films. You can be the best actor, and, you know, it's like we just said about John Patton Ford. John Patton Ford is an incredible director who didn't work for 12 years after doing a short film. So he was still John Patton Ford, a great director. But I would assume that those 12 years and all the shit and working in those catering jobs and all the things he was doing informed this film. So everybody's thing is different. My thing was, I needed this, just like I needed a SAG card, just like I needed to move to LA. I needed this, I needed this. I needed to check off, because, you know, there's all these cliche stoic terms, right? You can't build the wall without putting 1 brick at a time. You can't, you know, climb the mountain without taking 1 step. It's all true. There's a reason Marcus Aurelius and all these guys have been saying this, and people, you know, we've been listening to these for thousands of years, is because it's all true. It's 1 step. You can't say logically, just like I can't say, I'm going to win an Oscar this year. It's like, for what? You know, like, well, for what? What movie have you done? You have to think like, I want to do these jobs and work with this level of director. And then I want to go here and I want to go there. And that was always my mindset from the beginning. And I took no for an answer to myself, meaning like, if I had even a commercial audition for like a Honda or Nissan, I would stay in the night before. Even if, and they don't give you lines for those. I just was like, I have to be in the best state. I have to prepare myself. I want to be calm. I don't want to be hungover. I don't want to be this. I don't want to, because I had no plan B. It's now my only plan B was the only discernible skills I knew how to do were hitting the streets or, you know, hard labor. So I might as well try my best at this. And that's been the journey for 20 something years. It's never changed. It never will.
That's amazing. You've been doing it 20 years. I mean, you don't seem old enough to have been doing it that long. It's mad. What you said there as well, like having a plan B and a plan A, plan C. It's like, what is it Arnold says? He says something like, if you have a plan B, you plan to fail. That's
Straight,
what,
and you know what? If you know, people don't like hearing that because it puts you out on the plank.
Mhm.
Well, what if you fail? Okay. Okay. If you fail, you fail. What are you going to do? It's okay to fail. Like, that's okay. And I think that the fear for a lot of people is like, what if? Okay. So like, it's like when we get ourselves so riled up over things that don't exist.
Mm.
What are we going to do if you can't? What if you lose your job? What if you have no money? You're not going to die. You're going to figure it out. You're going to figure it out either way. And it comes with being an actor. You have to understand it's all consuming. If you're looking at people, if you're studying people, if you go to a restaurant and you look at the way the waiter moves, or the way the maitre d' moves, or you're outside in traffic and you watch someone with road rage, that's all informing you to mimic society. You've decided to become a court jester for the world. You've decided that you're going to be an entertainer. And the way that this form of entertainment is to mimic others' lives, others' things. You can play yourself, but most of those people don't even know who they are. So they're playing a version that they think people want to see. It's why people who play UPS drivers have 12 packs. It's just not realistic, but it's an ego-driven thing. My thing was, if I'm going to mimic society, I can't have a plan B because I'd be thinking about the plan B. So what did I do? I got a job in a bar, and I was working as a bartender, a bar back, and a waiter, any shifts I can get, because that is I love doing it, by the way. It's one of my favorite jobs, but I don't take that home with me. Mm-hmm. When the clock ends, I end, and it's acting. And when I'm there, it's partial acting because I'm acting to get some type of tip or a better service. And it's the facts, right? That's you're acting like, because you're trying to get something. It's almost like being a grifter. And you're doing that, so you're using your stuff. But once you leave, it's over. If I was a pharmaceutical sales rep, if I was anything else, I'm taking that work home with me. And every hour that I take it home with me is one less hour that I could have been sitting down watching John Casale films and watching how good he is in the conversation and studying how different he was from when he was in Deer Hunter and when he was in, playing Fredo. If I can't sit and watch all Philip Seymour Hoffman's trajectory, I'm doing a disservice to myself as trying to be the best actor, because I'm doing spreadsheets for a job that I don't want to do.
Yeah.
It seems simple, but I think a lot of people don't want to walk the plank.
It is all consuming, and I've with my girlfriend has a normal job and she works 9 to 5, and obviously that explaining that to her, like, I either put 100% into this or I walk away, because you have to give everything to it. It really is all consuming, but we love it, and that's why we can be consumed by it.
There's nothing else. This is it, right? All the other stuff is bonus. What they pay you is great. It's just extending your addiction to this thing that you feel the need to do. And if you can't lie with that, I'm amazed of how many actors that I work with who don't want to be there.
Yeah.
I'm amazed by it. Like, I see it and I'm fascinated. I'm like, and we're talking people who make millions. And I'm like, why are you here? There's so many people that want to be here. And I think a lot of it is, I don't want to let anybody off the hook. I think a lot of it is that this business jades you, because there's a lot of ego, and there's a lot of competition, and there's a lot of unsureness, and people, it's almost like when the crab gets out of the bucket, he's not turning around for the rest. It's like they feel like they made it and they don't want to go back there because they know what going back there feels like. And they're like, I don't want to wait tables, and I don't want to do this, and I don't want. So because of that, their persona changes, which is unfortunate, because a lot of times the art changes. Because, again, it's informed from who you are. inside. So it's like, how do you, Marvin Hagler, do you know who Marvin Hagler is? Great boxer.
Yeah.
Marvelous Marvin Hagler lost this big, this bout that he should have won. And the interviewer said, what happened? And he said, it's hard to get up and run 6 miles when you're wearing a silk robe. And this is a guy who ran 6 miles every single day, Chicago, tough as nails. And then, it's hard to have that same motivation. So how do you hang on to it? So that same thing you had when you were trying to get your vouchers and you're trying to get the, you have to inform that if you're making tons of money and you're at the top of the game, because the truth is it doesn't last. I was saying this the other day that the harpoons come out for the biggest fish. The truth is it's not just you who can take your own career down. It's for some reason, it's the way humanity is structured. We don't like seeing people on top for a long time. In this business, especially. So it's like, and it's because so many aren't. So it's like when you get your moments, you have to take them because they're going to be fleeting, which is why the actors that I've informed myself with, I look at a career like John Turturro. I look at a career like Javier Bardem, who's, one of the greatest to ever do it. Cate Blanchett, again, top of the game, but they're kind of like under the radar at the top of the game. And to me, that's the career. That's the way you do it, is you are the best actor in the scene. You're in the best projects. You're supporting and making the other people across from you as great as they can be. And at the same time, you're not fighting for that light. You're okay with not having it because being there is the light. And that's the art. That's the journey of an artist, is like the goal. There's no winning this game. What you have to understand is you can't win. You don't win. There's no belt. Nobody's going to award you the belt and like you've won. No one gets out alive. And you're going to consistently move the goal line. Whatever goals you have in this game specifically, because I can't speak for the rest of life because I'm terrible at it, is you're going to get something. I want to be on a TV show, and then you're going to get on and you're going to move it. And you're going to go, oh, now I want to be in one that runs for 7 years. And that's going to happen. And then you go, but I'm not on that show. That one is like viral and people love it. Okay, let's move it again. So there's no happiness. That's the journey of an artist. If you're okay to take that on, and for some reason, a lot of people don't want to admit it in this game. And I think it's what makes people come off false nowadays. I think it's why we don't connect the way we used to the characters on screen. The way I'm just saying, like, I could watch Talented Mr. Ripley and Hoffman walks in and I'm like, okay, probably the best. This is going to be the best. Because I know when he comes in, there's something about even the way he turns the knob. And it's like, that's informed work. So it all comes from an informed life. And I think that we're at a very strange turning point in this business. So films like Emily, it's an honor. Yeah, you don't make any money. It costs you money to do it. You hope people see it, but that's what it's about.
It does feels like a movie that could have come out in the 90s, one of those films that it feels like it's definitely going to be one of those cult movies, and a dying breed, something that, as you say, like there's less and less of these sort of movies now. And like, as much as we all love a big kind of, huge budget special effects movie,
sure,
it's really nice to go and see something like this in the cinema and see something that's about people, about their lives and about real things and feels grounded and real. I was going to ask, obviously I can't not avoid asking about it because it's obviously a huge thing, but Sons of Anarchy.
You just crossed the line, brother. Not yet.
You are a criminal and a gunman.
Goddamn SOA! This guy's in danger.
I don't trust him.
This thing is different. Same crew. It's just an ugly memory in a history of charming. And all that blood's gonna kill Sam Crow.
The question is, are you with us here?
I'm afraid to get bloody, Clay. Citizens invest.
You can't change the rules, or it all goes to hell.
Massive fan of the show. Like, watched the
Yeah,
whole thing.
Tig's
Loved
texting
it.
me as we speak. Tig is texting me from in Canada. Yeah, I mean, it's everything.
When that came about, obviously you talk about your beginning and starting out, and then getting a job like that. Did you realize at the time, how much that was going to change your life?
No, not at all. It was such a battle. It was like all I remember was the battle. Again, there was a casting director, Wendy O'Brien, who's just an absolutely phenomenal human being. And Wendy had cast me in this TV show, Medical Investigation. And I did, really good in it, I thought. I was really happy with the work I had done. And so was she. And so were they. And then the show got canceled. I did one episode. And then we had done this movie from Chris Carter, who created the X-Files, and people were excited about it. It was an independent film, and I was playing this really despicable character, and people were really happy with the performance, but the movie never came out. And Wendy and I had formed this relationship of like, if you bring me in, I will do whatever is needed. If they make me do it 6 times, I'll do it 6 different ways. But I have your back if you have mine. And she knew that. So when Sons came about, I got brought in to read for Jax, which is hysterical when you think about it. And they were like, no, in every aspect. They're like, this is not. But they liked me. And then I came back to read for a character named Hawk, who eventually became Tig. And they were like, no. Then I read for a character named Half Sack. And they were like, no. And there's a lot more deeper to the story, but ultimately I didn't get anything. And Wendy was like, oh man, those were all so good. And all right, we're going to get something. And because my uncle who had raised me had used to be in 1% clubs and loved motorcycles in Northern California, and he had passed 2 years before, I was like, no, this is the one. This is the show. And Wendy's like, it's not. I was like, what about like the rival gang? She was like, it's not going to happen. And then a week later, I got a phone call, maybe 10 days later. And they said the creator wanted to speak with me. And I was like, okay. And he said, listen, I really liked everything you did. And I love that you kept coming back in. And I love that you sometimes did 2 different characters in a day. And I don't know what you'll do in this show. I don't know if you'll be in it for 1 episode or 100. I don't know if you'll have 1 line or 100. I just know I want you in the show. And I was like, okay. And he was like, so I'm going to write something, but if you trust me, we'll do this together. And I was like, and me not knowing how agents, managers and all that work, I'm like, yeah, let's do it. Called my manager at the time and I said, hey, I just got off with Kurt, the creator, and I'm going to do the show. And she said, no, you're not. And I said, yeah, I just told him I'll do it. And she was like, we have you for this other pilot, like something on like Lifetime or something. And I was like, yeah, but no, I'm supposed to do this show. And she was like, let me call you back. And she called them and it was like, no money, no nothing, no, like it was all bad. And she's like, if you do this job and don't do this other one, I'm not going to be able to represent you anymore. And I was like, cool. I'm doing that other show. I was like, that's fine with me because I'm supposed to do that show.
Mm-hmm.
I knew it in my heart when I used to sit with my uncle on the steps and he used to tell me about these clubs and he was no longer with me. Like he was doing something that I was supposed to do it. I played a totally different character in the pilot. I had hair and I was a computer geek and all this. And then we shot the pilot for a couple of weeks. It was like a who's who of character actors for me because I was such like a cinephile that I was like, oh my God, it's a guy from Braveheart. Oh my God, and at this point there was no it was like I just watched Green Street Hooligans and I became obsessed with it. Like I loved, that was the first, I couldn't believe that Pete Dunham, like I just watched it. And I was like, I just watched this movie 2 weeks ago and that's the kid, because I had never seen him in anything else. And obviously Katie from Married with Children. So we shot this pilot. There was a different Clay, Scott Glenn, the actor who I had worked with in 2004. This is how weird this all gets.
Wow.
In 2004, I was doing a movie in Canada called Code Breakers. It was the first time I ever made any real money for a film. My uncle and I, who raised me, because my father was gone. When I say raised me, my mom was there, but he was the figure in my life, like the intellectual, kind of like grounding, masculine figure in my life. He had moved from California to New York, because he had left New York when his father died when he was 20. So he had come back, and he's the one who was telling me all about the clubs. He didn't know how to text, and this was like, he was terrible at it. It was 2004, and I was doing this film. 2003, 2004, I was doing this film in Canada. He would write me letters and send them to the hotel, the Royal Fairmont. And he would write me letters. And in this one letter, he wrote, he used to call me son. He's like, even in death, I'll always be with you. The next night was the rap party. He died in his sleep. Here's the craziest thing. Scott Glenn was the lead of that. He was the number one. Sons of Anarchy pilot, Scott Glenn's playing Clay. Okay. I fought tooth and nail to get into this pilot. By the stroke of luck of Kurt seeing something, puts me in it. We do the pilot and crickets. Get a call about 2 weeks later. Now we've all become really tight. Mainly me and Jax, Charlie, me and Emilio. Emilio, who plays Alvarez, is playing the Tig role. So he's in a Sons of Anarchy cut, playing the Tig role to Scott Glenn's Clay. They say they really like the show, but they're going to recast. And I'm like, oh, I only had one line in the pilot. I was like, I wonder, it's got to be me. And they were like, they're going to recast. They're going to reshoot some stuff. And then they're going to see if they're going to pick it up. And Charlie and I were like, okay, so we're gone, because it's definitely not Scott. It's definitely not Emilio. He's playing his right hand. Definitely not Katie. She's married to the creator. So it's probably me and Charlie. It's probably not Tommy, because Gladiator, and Braveheart, like he's fine. And they wound up recasting Scott, and they wound up moving Emilio to the enemy of the Mayans. And they brought in Kim Coates and Ron Perlman. And they told me, Kurt said, we're going to shave your head. We're going to take these tattoos that I have on my arms and we're going to put them on your head. Juice is going to be a whole different backstory, all this. And you're going to have a little more to do. And that was it. And we were off to the races. And then the truth is, we thought every episode we were going to get told that it's canceled until season 2. The opening scene with Rollins and Katie and all that. And it was this really aggressive thing on television. And it was so talked about. And then Netflix picked up the first 3 seasons, because this is back in the day when Netflix didn't have a ton of original content. They aired all 3 before the 4th season started, which was the beginning of Juice's journey. And I knew at that moment my entire life had changed. I knew it. It was the first time I was informed that life is going to be different. And it's been incredible since.
That's amazing. There's so many little tiny things that if they'd have changed, it would have changed everything. That's the crazy thing about this industry, and it's like one day to the next, it can change everything.
Everything.
It's really inspiring to hear that story in such depth.
And it's also nerve-wracking, right? Because this is why do we do it? Why are we the junkies that keep coming to the trough? Because it's like, we know that this happens. We know. And that on every level, I know new levels bring new devils, but we know it happens. And because of that, we stay and we stay. And some people will say it's to your detriment. But my thing is, if people want to keep preaching that life is the journey, not the destination, let the journey be. if you're enjoying it and that's what you want to do, I mentor a lot of young actors and I say, you happy? You happy with what you're doing? They go, yeah, I'm frustrated. I go, but are you happy in like what you're doing with the craft and what you're doing with this? Who cares about the rest? Who cares? All of it. Sure, you want to have a home, you want to have this, and you want to. I didn't have kids till I was like 40, 39. I had my first kid because I wasn't there. I couldn't do it. I wasn't in a position to be in a relationship. My thing was this. So I've always found it really interesting that in so many other industries, we promote hard work, but not in this one. In this one, it's a pipe dream. We don't say like, keep going, you'll get it. We go, hey, be realistic. But you don't tell a lawyer who's starting as a paralegal to be realistic. You just don't do that. It's so bizarre. It's like telling a young podcaster, like, hey, you're never going to be this. So what are you doing?
Just give up.
Yeah, just give up. Yeah. And it's the misery loves company thing. It's like, there's a feeling of, I'm trying to help you. It's like, no, you're trying to help you. I'm good doing this. And that's how I always was. Like, I was like, hey, I'm going to die on my sword no matter what it is. You might not get the, the white picket fence and the grandkids and all that. And that's okay. So Sons changed everything. It's how I met my wife. It's how I created my life. It informed every other role. It went right to a few movies, then into Luke Cage, and then everything since. It's been amazing. And we still see, I was just with Jax, Clay, and Alvarez, Emilio in wherever I was. We did some Comic-Con thing. So I'm with them, and I just got off the phone with Charlie literally yesterday. We were FaceTiming. So it's like, that's a rarity because I've done a lot of shows since. You don't create that bond that we had.
That's amazing as well, because it's been quite a few years since the last season now. And the factual, it's 8 years. I didn't think it was that long. Oh my god,
8 years. Yeah, I'm reminded all the time at these Comic-Cons. It was 8 years ago. Yeah.
Wow. I have actually I have a confession to make. You won't remember this, but I've met you, and it was actually at a Comic-Con. I was doing a movie with Tommy Flanagan in York, and you guys were doing a Comic-Con in Wales.
In Wales.
Yeah,
yes.
And I came down and we all went for dinner in Cheshire. And I was trying to be cool. I was trying to be cool because everyone there, like obviously yourself, Charlie Hannon, and Tommy, I mean, I've met.
That was the first one. Charlie was shooting The Gentleman during it.
Yeah.
Tommy was crazy as he's always been.
But like, what's lovely about that is that I've got to know Tommy over. We've done a couple of films together, but then meeting you and then chatting to you now, you're the same guy, and that's always a joyful thing to see. Like a truthful kind of you being yourself, and I mean that night blew my mind because I'm around the table with the Sons of Anarchy. You know what I mean? Kind of crazy.
Wait, let me ask you this, just because I love crazy shit. Is we were just at dinner, me, Ron, Charlie, Alvarez, and a couple other people, and we were super reminiscing, right? And Fred, the promoter, that was like the first time. I think that was Charlie's first con with us. We had done a few before. In Wales, wasn't that the fucking place that was so loud that no one can speak to each other when we were at the dinner table?
Yeah.
That was it, right? Like you literally couldn't have a conversation with anyone or anything.
And Tommy was getting really pissed off because they had like really loud, like it was like Christmas music, I think, at one point.
It was Christmas music.
Yeah, really loud.
It was Christmas time. It was December. It was complete madness. And oh God, I absolutely, if somebody asked me many times, Tommy Flanagan is potentially my favorite, the most frustrating and beautiful human I ever met. All in one, which is why he's so incredible as an actor. Because
I love that, man.
He is so frustrating. And he knows it too. I love him. Like I can't love a human that's not here with me, in my family, like more than I love him. But my goodness, does he make me. I was telling a story about him the other day. We had gotten off a plane in some city He never has money on him. I don't know what he does with his money. And he goes,
I remember you busting his balls about this in Cheshire.
oh, fuck, all the time. He goes, a Starbucks was just opening. We took a red eye. And he's like, hey, give me some money. I gotta get. I have to decipher what's going on in the conversation. I go, sure. I had 100 on me, so I gave it to him. And I'm walking behind him, and he gets his quad macchiato or whatever he gets, which is just like turbo fuel for anyone else. And for him, it's like nothing. He gets it. The girl's super excited to see him. And, and I say, hey, how are you? Whatever. And she does the whole thing, and he does the whole thing. And she's the only one working. We're at the airport. And he gets the quad macchiato and he gives her the 100. And he goes, no, you keep it. And I go, motherfucker. It's my money. Like, what are you doing? And that is him. He breezes through life. Like, it's like he just breezes through, and it's why he's one of my favorite artists ever. So that's incredible that we did meet, especially like Charlie and I were just discussing it this weekend, Wales, because I'm supposed to go to Liverpool in November.
Yeah, nice.
And then when we were discussing that, Charlie won't be at that one, and then Germany in December. Yeah, that's amazing. Man. What an amazing, that was like a momentous event. Charlie was in his gentleman character. He had like his vest on.
Yeah.
He was fully in it.
That's funny because I didn't know that at the time, obviously, but looking back at it now, I'm like, yeah, that makes sense.
That's why he was dressed like that with the hat. And he had the Guy Ritchie special on, the whole
That's so funny.
No,
man, this has been wicked. Thank you so much.
Yeah,
and,
man. Thank you.
Really
I appreciate it.
Really inspiring. Can I ask one last thing?
Sure.
It's a bit of a tradition, but basically, I'd like to ask my guests: do you have an embarrassing story or a humiliating moment that you will share with us, maybe on set?
The one that always comes to the top of my head, because it was pretty. It was pretty significant, was I was still learning how to be an actor when I was doing Sons. I was still learning kind of what it meant to like how to, I wanted to change my body, and I wanted to like look a certain way, and I wanted to do. So we were doing this prison episode, and I had to be shirtless, and I was like, oh, what do I do here? Like, how do I look the best? Meanwhile, it's like the night before, and I'm like, how do I do this? not like leading up to it. It wasn't, I didn't have the knowledge I have now, but I was like, what do I do? And I don't know who said it, but whoever said it is an idiot. But they were like, oh, you got to drink this tea called Smooth Move.
Oh,
no. You gotta get everything out of your body and get rid of the water bloat, which all makes sense in a sustained period of time, not the night before. So me, because I take everything to the max, here I am drinking like 5 tea bags of Smooth Move, like just like going, right? And we're on a prison. We're shooting at a real prison in downtown LA. It's well over 100 degrees. I don't know the exact temperature, but we're up on the top. And it was so hot that the black tar on the roof was sticking to our white slip-on shoes. And it was me, Flanagan, Charlie, everybody was in prison. And the bathrooms, the porta potties, were all the way down on the ground floor, which is probably about 6 floors. And I am chugging this Smooth Move, getting ready for the big reveal when the shirt's going to come off for this scene with this character Dion, and where they use this thing. It's kind of got famous in the Sons lore, juice bait or whatever. And I'm thinking, like in Dumb and Dumber, where you hear the thing in the stomach, I'm like, this ain't good. It's like, uh-oh. And I'm like, uh-oh. And we got to go. And I'm not important enough on that show to hold up production. So like when they're rolling, I got to be in there. And it got to this point where I was like, uh-oh. And they're rolling. We're doing take after take after take. And I'm like, and my shoes are stuck in the tar. And everybody was getting like a kick about that. But what they didn't realize is it was a roller coaster in my stomach. So all of a sudden, which I've never done to this day, right in the middle of a scene, I'm like, I got to go. And I ran down the steps and I held on to that porta potty like it was a plane going down. I was holding on. I was holding on for dear life, and all I heard on the radios, anybody got eyes on Theo? Anybody know where he is? Anybody? Like, they were trying to shoot, and I just disappeared. And I came out of that porta potty like I had just won the Super Bowl. I was like, let's go. And they were like, where were you for the last 20 minutes? And I went upstairs, and everyone up there kind of, they knew. Whoever said it, maybe it was Charlie or Ryan. It might have been Opie who said use the smooth move, and I guess they knew how my personality was. But yeah, it was
That's amazing.
it was a disaster, and it was pretty embarrassing.
That's a good one. That is pretty, that could have been more embarrassing though. It could have gone horribly wrong.
And I had on that orange jumpsuit. Yeah, it could have been a real disaster. Plus there was about 200 extras, and most of them were real incarcerated people who were about as tough as human beings come. So if they're watching this, little actor kind of crap himself, it probably would have been a really bad situation.
Oh man, perfect. Thank you so much. And sorry, I've taken up way too much of your time.
No, it's all good. I appreciate you. I'm so glad. And I'm so glad you informed me of that, because that was a momentous time for all of us. And it's amazing that we were all part of it together. I appreciate you.
Thank you so much, man.
Yeah,
Take
man.
care, and all the best
All right.
with the film.
Yeah, you too. And take it easy.
Cheers, man.
Emily the Criminal opens in the UK on the 27th of October. If you enjoyed this episode, please review and share this podcast. It makes a huge difference. We're also on Patreon, TikTok and Instagram if you'd like to support us or get more content. Thank you.
And you better come back next month to a life and fail.